Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, along with my co-host, Ed Carbajal, and on a weekly basis, we plan to bring you the biggest news and interviews in the world of combat sports. Ed, long three-day Labor Day weekend. How you doing, man?
Pretty good, pretty good. I mean, Jersey weather's crazy. It was decent weather kind of most of the weekend, and then today it's like hot as balls. So like my apartment's on fire pretty much. That's why I got my fresh fade going to keep my head cool. But I got some. I mean, it was a good weekend. I got some jujitsu in the books. Watched some fights. What did I watch? I watched Invicta after it was live. I didn't watch it live, and actually did watch the Cage Warriors '96. That was pretty good. I saw that after I trained, and then I went out to eat. But yeah, man, nothing out of the ordinary here. Hung out with my pops for a bit, got some training done. But I mean, we hit folks with a double whammy last week. We had the Pride book author Lee Daly early in the week, and then midweek we did quick recap of the previous event, and then the Mark Taffet interview for MMA Pro League. So, I mean, it was still a good time.
Cool. Yeah, I saw about half of the Invicta, and then I still got to catch up on the Cage Warriors event. So I got some catching up to do. And like I was telling you before I went on the air, I got caught up in the crazy shooting at the Del Mar racetrack here. Um, luckily nobody got shot except for the guy who pulled the gun, but running from bullets, not knowing where they're coming from, was definitely a little bit of an experience. I hope I don't have to deal with again.
No, man,
Uh,
that's crazy. I was wondering why I hadn't heard from you over the weekend because we usually try to plan, for the episode around Sunday night, Monday afternoon, and I figured the weekend we were both kind of just being lazy and busy or whatever. But I mean, you just hit me with that before we went live. Now that's crazy, man.
yeah, I mean, Sunday night it was a long night, and then yesterday just kind of laid low. It wasn't something that was going to be traumatic, but it was definitely scary for 5 minute period there, not knowing what was happening or where bullets were coming from or how many there were and stuff like that was wild. But that's like I was saying, the $6 Ice Cube concert. You got to be careful going to those, and
Yeah,
that's my takeaway for the weekend.
yeah.
Um, with that said, we're looking forward to this weekend. It's nice to get a UFC pay per view back. Haven't had one since the TJ Garbrandt and Mighty Mouse Cejudo fight at 227. Um, I think we're just going to kind of go down the card. I know some of the early Fight Pass prelims had caught your attention and you wanted to comment on them. I see Jim Miller is fighting Alex White and Diego Sanchez is fighting Craig White. Um, you want to say what you got to say about those?
I mean, so I understand that they want to up Fight Pass subscribership, and guys like Diego Sanchez and Jim Miller are like pretty well known to fans of the sport, really well known to the hardcore fans like you and I, and still notable enough names, even though they've been fighting for a while, that to make a new Fight Pass subscriber feel like it's worth their money. But I'm kind of like, man, like these guys, at least put them on the the FX prelims. Like I don't know. I feel like that they're being pushed back, but I mean, I get they're trying to push the younger, newer, fresher guys that are going to have that have more time left in this sport. I understand all of that, but I don't know. I guess because I'm always sensitive when a Jersey fighter fights with Jim Miller on the card. I'm kind of like, man, that guy should at least be on the FX prelims. But hey, as long as they're getting paid and they're happy, I guess it doesn't matter what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it really changes their pay much. You know, uh, they to me they should kind of get that lifetime thing where if they're not going to be on a pay per view and Jim Miller's, honestly, he's kind of coming to the end here. He's had 4 losses in a row. Um, but like you said, the Fox Sports or the FX, whatever the prelims are on. To me, that's kind of a cool thing for his fans that have been around. His family gets to watch him for free on TV, and it's one of those things. I know Uriah Faber used to really kind of push for that. Never had a problem fighting on those prelims because his argument was always, "Hey, nobody has to dish out any money to watch me fight."
Yeah,
And
on FX on the regular prelim, but these guys are on the Fight Pass
they're on
prelim.
the Fight Pass. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So being on that, I mean, you know, I don't know. many people that would honestly, at this point, even subscribe to Fight Pass for those fights. I mean, they're names, but if I didn't have Fight Pass, which I already do, I probably wouldn't pay for it just for those fights at this
and
point.
it's actually a pretty good, there's one, two, three, four, five fights on the Fight Pass prelims, which is kind of a lot lately. There hasn't been that many, so I feel like that's a good. I mean, it's a good portion of the card to watch. Irene Aldana's on there too,
Uh huh.
for the bantamweight division against Lucy Pudilovia. So it's like I mean it's definitely, sometimes when I miss the Fight Pass fights, I'm not really like worried about it as long as I catch the rest of them. But I actually really want to watch these fights more than, I mean, there's fights on the FX prelims that I'm interested in too. So there's definitely some people circling titles in that, especially in the bantamweight division. So I don't know if you had any comment on the two bantamweight fights on the FX portion.
The Jimmy Rivera John Dotson fight's definitely an interesting fight. Rivera's coming off of first loss in what 21 fights or so, 20, 21
Yeah,
fights, and that was a devastating knockout to Marias. Um, Gosh, I don't know. My brain says I go with Jimmy Rivera, but part of me wonders just how he bounces back. I've said it several times on these shows that what defines somebody as a fighter at this level is how you bounce back from a
yeah,
devastating loss. Everybody has one eventually. Um, you know, Other than I guess John Jones at this point, everybody in the sport at this high level has taken a beating at some point, and um, or in Khabib, but he
yeah.
hasn't carried the championship label long enough to and stuff like that. But I don't know. I guess I got to go with Rivera. I feel like he's the new up and coming guy, even though he has 20 something fights. Um, but part of me worries a little bit where his head will be at, and if Dodson comes to fight, he's definitely game.
Yeah, he's a scrapper too. I was gonna say but I feel like, I don't know. I mean, Jimmy Rivera, again, like, I like to side with the guys from my coast, but those Tiger Schulman guys, they always roll pretty deep, so they always have a very very big support structure behind them. So I'm pretty sure. I think his mind will be right for the loss and after the loss, and I'm pretty sure he's younger than Dodson too, so it's hard to root against a younger guy. But Dotson's a scrapper, man. I mean, he's been in the fight game for a while. He's not somebody that very positive energy. He's already felt losses, so he's got really nothing to lose in this fight, which makes him dangerous. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So I mean, if I put my money to it, I'm taking Rivera in that fight. Um, in a close, probably a close decision. I don't see a finish happening in that bout.
yeah. And then Sterling and Staman are right after them. And I know Sterling has called out Rivera in the past because of their rankings and title shot in the division and stuff, which I know Sterling wants to get up there. So I feel like some type of call out's going to happen between these two. There'll be something with the way they're lined up on the card. There'll be something afterwards, especially if they both win, which I have Sterling winning that fight as well.
It's going to be interesting. He's coming off a big win over Brett Johns, and Stamen's what 17-1. Whew. I I'm gonna go opposite. I'm gonna go Stamen wins, throws that little rate, that little fight hype train to the side, and
Hmm.
he's coming off a win over Caraway, who is a grinder himself. So yeah, I mean, I'll go with Stamen. You go with Sterling, and and it'll be a beer on whoever loses that one in a couple weeks.
Yeah, well, hopefully Funkmaster keeps. I mean, he's been pretty positive. You just talked about how guys come back from losses, and he had that really bad knockout against Marlon Moraes. So, and he
That he
came.
did. That he
Yeah,
did. So that's hard to he's kind of went with what I said, what makes champions in this sport, and like you said,
yeah,
the devastating 1 minute knockout to Marias, and then to come back with a win over an undefeated Johns at the time, who
yeah.
I don't think many people were picking Sterling in that fight.
No, because the people were thinking too the same thing, like that shell shock that sticks around after a really bad loss like that. But he's got a video blog that I follow, and for such a young guy, he's really positive. Like, he did everything right that you should do. when you take a loss like that. He even made fun of himself. So,
Just glancing at his record too, it
excuse me.
slipped my mind, or I wasn't aware that he has 3 losses. So obviously the Marias knockout, but prior to that, he has split decision losses to Caraway and a Sunsao in back-to-back bouts. So obviously he's his 3 losses. 2 of those could have easily went his way. In fact, one judge picked him to win those fights. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's gonna be a great fight, and the prelims, like you said, are pretty good. Aldana, Jim Miller's, Diego on Fight Pass, and then there's a women's fight on the FX prelim card that I'm really looking forward to, and that's Carla Esparza and Tatiana Suarez. Um, Suarez has been pretty much a wrecking machine since the
yeah,
Ultimate Fighter. Her wrestling has pretty much been um, on another level than the women are used to seeing at the 115 pounds.
yeah. And I hate to say it, like because Carla Esparza was the original like strawweight champion, but it doesn't seem like she's done much to evolve her game to last against like someone like Suarez or anyone else that's up there at strawweight. So I feel like her wrestling's not going to be strong enough to you know what I mean I don't see her winning. I'm going with Suarez.
Yeah, I think Suarez is going to beat her. I mean, the argument could be made, although Esparza lost her last bout to Claudia Gadelia, it was a really close split decision fight. And Claudia, if not the number one wrestler in that division, is the number two behind Suarez. So,
Hmm.
she's coming into a fight where she at least had a big bout against a big name woman in that weight class that was also a wrestler. So maybe she took some experience from there, worked on it a little more. But everything I've seen out of Suarez has been, no one's even come close to stopping uh, anything she's done. Um, I mean, nobody's been able to stop her takedowns. It's just been nonstop. I know she fought Alexa Grasso and just manhandled her and finished her in the first round. And it wasn't long ago that Grosso was one of the top prospects in that division, and um, she got handled.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see. I mean, I never like listening to odds makers and stuff. I actually checked a lot of the odds lately for this card, especially because I was trying that face off social challenge thing.
Hmm.
And a lot of these fights they're pretty even. I think the biggest I mean I'm not trying to jump ahead, but the biggest underdog on the card is Nico Montano, and that's just simply because of her absence. She's the co-main event against Valentina Shevchenko, but um like I said, I didn't mean to jump ahead because obviously there's 5 cards on the main pay-per-view portion, 5 fights on the main pay-per-view portion of the card, and that's actually a pretty stacked pay-per-view that I'm excited to see. One thing though that Zabit I'm not going to try to say his last name.
Megomed Shabirov.
Yeah, yeah. That I know he was originally supposed to fight Yair Rodriguez, and he pulled out. Now, and Brandis Davis is the alternate. That's right.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, and I
So
I fully expect Zabit to
to do what he does, yeah,
Zabit him down.
yeah, yeah.
In brutal fashion. That's kind to me. Looking at the card, that's kind of the squash match. But
Uh-huh.
as somebody who goes to a bunch of fights, I've mentioned it in the past. Anytime the UFC can keep one of their stars on a card for the fans that paid a ticket to watch him fight, um, I got to give a cheers to the UFC for doing that. Um, Even if it turns out to be a 1 minute fight, the fans there that bought the tickets deserve to watch as much of the card that they paid for when they bought their ticket.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know what Yair Rodriguez deal is. I mean, I know his injury he pulled out for, but it seems like he's always injured every time it's time for him to fight. So you know,
It's a little suspicious. I mean, has
yeah,
he? I don't even think he's fought since the BJ Penn fight. I
he
feel like
hasn't
that was.
he hasn't fought since Frankie Edgar beat him up. No, that's
Okay,
what.
okay, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So he fought. Yeah, he fought. He destroyed BJ Penn, and then Frankie Edgar destroyed him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was supposed to come back to fight Zabit months ago. Uh, kind of balked at it. UFC cut him. Then the UFC brought him back because I'm guessing mainly because of the outcry of the fans thought it was wrong, and then he comes back and then drops out of this fight.
Yeah.
A month prior with an injury.
Yeah.
So you know, hopefully it's not a severe injury. Um, but if he comes back and fights sometime in the next 4 weeks, it's going to look a little suspicious. Um, the way I don't know. Not to say I'm not saying he's ducking anybody, but it's definitely some weird scenarios around this fight.
So, and again, like I said, I didn't mean to jump ahead because Jessica Andrade and Karolina Kowalkiewicz are also fighting on the card, and I'm having a hard time picking a winner for that one. I kind of like Carolina. I always feel like she's a bit of an underdog. She's always kind of floating around the top of her division. I mean, she doesn't get beat terribly badly when she loses, so I feel like it's kind of a hard one to call. I wouldn't be surprised if she pulled off a win.
Ooh, I don't see it. I like her. I root for her. I was at her fight in New York when she had that great bout with Joanna.
Yeah,
After that fight, she lost to Claudia, and then she rebounded with wins over Jodie Escobar and Felice Herring. I don't. Uh, Gosh, I Jessica Andrade is I don't know. I just think she's going to be too strong. What I've seen in her last few bouts, she just mauled the women she's fought. Um, I think she'll take this fight down to the ground, and I'm not sure how Carolina will deal with
yeah,
the
that's true
ground
too.
fighting strength. So if it
Yeah,
stays on the feet, it's 50-50 in my opinion. But if it goes down to the ground, it's all in Andrade in my opinion. So I think she's the I don't know if I hate to say she's the future of that weight class. She's been around forever, but uh, I don't know. I, I feel like she could easily become be the champion in that weight class in the next 18 months.
yeah.
You know, I so I don't know. So I'll go with Andrade in that one. Go with Shapirov or Megomed Shapirov. We skipped over the Abdul Razak
And
Hassan
Nico
versus
Price,
Nico
yeah.
Price fight, which I just noticed today. That's surprisingly a good fight. Price is coming off that knockout where he was on the bottom and knocked the guy out with the hammer fist,
Yeah.
kind of shocking fashion.
Yeah, that was shocking, but it was also kind of a fluke too that he admitted himself. He said I'm gonna try this and see if it works, and it did. So I don't know.
But he's 12-1. I mean, he's a good,
Yeah,
so fluke or not, you know, it's one of those things. He's 12-1, and Hassan is 9-1. So uh, both coming off of win streaks, and I don't know. I'll go with Nico. Just seems like I don't know. I'll go with Nico in that fight. Can't give too much of a educated opinion. I think it'll be a close, good fight.
yeah. I mean, Al Hassan, he's fought in Bellator, he's fought in LFA. So I mean, he's got some. I know he's got the lesser numbers. I think he's got better, like a nice quality track record to be on the main card. For both of them, it's great that they're on the main card and everything. But 33 years old, he's got a black belt in judo. So I think I'm gonna just to play devil's advocate. I'm gonna go with Al Hassan.
All right. Well, there's the double or nothing beer bet right there. Now with that though, now we get to the two top fights on the card. Um, Nico Montano, the first ever women's flyweight champion who won the belt after completing the Ultimate Fighter and defeating Roxanne Modafari in the finals last December in Las Vegas. She faces Valentina Shevchenko, who was a two-time title contender at the 135-pound bantamweight class and lost two close fights to Amanda Nunes. Um, the odds makers have it about 8-10 to 1 for Shevchenko. Does that sound right from what you saw?
Yeah, yeah, she's a huge underdog, Montano. The last time I looked, um, I checked that face off website that I was telling you about. So she's gonna pay off pretty big if she wins. But I kind of think people are giving her like they're forgetting about just because of her inactivity because she's had the tonsillitis and all the other stuff that went on that kept her from defending the flyweight title. So it's kind of like, but then there's that thing too with the women. With the tough champions, they don't really hold those belts for long when it's for a title. So it's kind of now I'm being a little superstitious or whatever, but I don't know. She seems like she's got a lot to prove. I think Montano could surprise us with it, not by finishing her, but like a decision win.
Yeah, I don't think it's out of the question. I think she's definitely being underrated. I think the most of the fans know Shevchenko. Most
Hmm.
fans don't know Montano. I was at the fight she won the championship. So I was kind of invested in that season of The Ultimate Fighter. So I got to see her, and I think she came into that like the 13 seed, might have been the 14 seed, and beat just
Hmm.
about anybody. Beat all the top seeds to win the title. Um, it's hard to bet against Bullet Shevchenko. So I'm going to obviously pick her. But like you said, if I was in Vegas, you give me
Yeah.
you give me 10 to what odds, I'll put $20 on Montano and see if I can win a couple $100. But
Yeah.
Shevchenko hasn't finished a lot of people. She won by I believe she won by armbar a couple fights ago. Um,
Yeah, and
but
which shows improvement in her game and that she's still evolving with it, which is why she's the favorite, because I mean, and she's got great striking. I know her sister's a kickboxer too, so it's like I think I don't see her being a slouch. She could definitely pull it off, and that was a nice transition. The armbar was like off of a triangle attempt, then she switched to the armbar, so it shows her awareness on her back. Even if Montano tries to grind her out, she's still going to be threatening. So it's definitely like uh, easy to see why she's a favorite. But I think Montano, she seems like a quietly angry about what everyone thinks, and I feel like she's got a lot to prove. I mean, she's beaten a lot of good people that she was supposed to lose to, and on her way to the title too. With that whole thing with the show. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think she's tougher than people are giving her credit for. Um, Basically, I guess my point I was trying to make, everybody assumes she's just Shevchenko's just gonna maul her and knock her out or just beat her into oblivion. And since Shevchenko's come into the UFC, she hasn't knocked anybody out. She has zero finishes by strikes. Her only finish in the UFC is by that armbar. So
yeah,
I think people, kind of remember her last fight where she fought that outgunned Brazilian girl who took the fight kind of late notice and
yeah,
just got absolutely crushed. And I take that back. That was a submission, but it was a choke. And I don't know. I don't see Montano getting submitted in the fight, and I think she's tough, and I think if she's able to grind it out, you never know. You get into the later rounds of these fights. If she manages to get Shevchenko down, I think she can shock a lot of people. So, I will go with Shevchenko, but I think the fight's going to be a lot better than people are, and the odds makers are giving it a chance to be.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Me too. I'm going Montano, like I said, just because I honestly think she's got something to prove, and she even said she's a big fan of Shevchenko, so to like try to get a win over her would be an ultimate on top of defending her title would be a great goal to accomplish for her. So, but yeah, and then I mean, I honestly hope this main event doesn't fall apart before we hit the weekend. I mean, that's the only reason I'm always skeptical about doing predictions for the UFC so far out from weigh-ins because they haven't had the best track record lately.
Yeah, I have a bad feeling. I'm afraid of Till. I don't know. To me, this is what happens when you give a guy a title shot who misses weight by what 7 pounds in his last fight.
And
Wasn't it
then
some?
yeah, and then he was complaining really like a lot at the media scrum or whatever he did last week. He was complaining about how hard the weight cut was a week ago. So Lord knows what where he's at now. And then he said that he wants people to stop talking about it, which means it's an issue for him because it's sensitive about it. You know what I mean? So, and if you're sensitive about something, it's probably because it's a problem you're dealing with. So, I mean, if this is one of those things that happens where the fight happens, but Darren Till fights, but you know can't win the title, one of those situations, then that's kind of a slap in the face to people that watch the pay-per-view.
Yeah, I don't know. I gotta see what happens here.
Yeah,
I don't know. The If Till makes weight and it goes down as a title fight, I think Woodley's gonna beat him.
me too.
I think Woodley TKOs him. In about 4 rounds. I think Till will come out, guns blazing early, but I think if Woodley's smart, he'll use his wrestling, and then I think Till will gas in the latter rounds, and Woodley will finish him. Um,
And that's the thing. Woodley is smart. That's why I don't see I see him. I see him winning. I see him winning every way possible. A lot of people gave Woodley crap over the way he fought Damian Maia, but that's the smartest way you fight a guy like Damian Maia. Like you have to not engage him where he's trying to engage you on the ground. You have to do those stick and move one punch at a time. So I'm pretty sure he's got something just as smart for Darren Till, who I think has reach on him, but I think Woodley's going to be craftier. I see Woodley holding on to his title.
Yeah, and then we get in the question of what happens. Obviously, if Till misses weight, um, earlier for the last 6 weeks, 2 months, we've been hearing that Kamaru Usman was a backup if one of these fighters fell out, and
Yeah.
Woodley came out about a week ago and said that there's a 0% or 100% chance that he would not fight Usman if it comes down to it. And I don't know. I see people saying Woodley doesn't know anybody, doesn't know the fans. I don't know. I don't know. You're the headliner of this card. If that fight gets canceled and you don't take Usman and you make that main event Montano Shinchenko, I can tell you one thing: as a fan who buys tickets, there's a 100% chance I will never buy a ticket to an event that Woodley's headlining if I know that he's not willing to. I mean, I get that there's positives, negatives, and stuff on both sides, but you're getting paid good money.
Yeah.
I don't know. He can make that decision as a fighter, and I can make that decision with my checkbook and my ticket buying ability to know that if Woodley's the headliner and he's not willing to ever step up to save a card that he's the main selling point of, then I don't think that's good for business on his part. I think it'd be better to take a fight and lose and then come back in a rematch that he's trained for and win his title back than disappear and I mean, honestly, if that top fight falls out, we talked about how it's a decent pay-per-view. You drop down to 80,000 pay-per-view buys. If that main fight falls off, who's is are
Yeah, and not too many people. I mean, when I talk to my training partners and people that follow the sport, I'm just like, man, a lot of people, they're not real super happy with the UFC right now. So that's not something they can afford to have happen, especially with I know we talked about it last week without having announced who our main event is for UFC 230. Like, what is going on here?
yeah,
Like,
I don't know. That's a nice transition. I don't know. I don't know. I'm what are we on? Let's say September 4th. Um, the fight is November 3rd, so we're less than 2 months out from that fight. Nothing's been announced. Most people are booked. Um, I don't know. I mean, the only thing that can happen is John Jones at this point. It's hard to believe that he's going to come back.
yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, with all the chatter he had, and I think it was Chael Sonnen's podcast last Wednesday or Thursday. I forget which one. I think it was last Wednesday because he talked about that boxer that walked out of the PBC fight of the Friday before. But he said that they're trying to work something out with USADA to get him and Gustafsson in there, which I don't know if that's Madison Square Garden worthy. But the last time he insinuated something like that was when he hinted at the Mayweather McGregor thing actually coming to fruition, and it did. So I know he's got some insider information with ticket selling people and stuff. So I'm just like, okay, like something's got to be going on, especially the way they went at it over the weekend. John Jones and Chael Sonnen were like insulting each other, and then John Jones going after DC and giving his own fight predictions for Conor and Khabib. So I mean, he's usually not this vocal if he's not doing something in the fight game himself.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're going to have to get over the Madison Square Garden worthy thing at this point. I don't know. There's not a whole lot of options. We either get Cormier Jones, we either get Jones Gustafson, or we end up getting a couple quick title fights, maybe, and I know they've already said the co-main event is Diaz and Poirier. Um, but I don't know. Rose isn't booked, TJ's not booked, Cejudo's not booked. But other than those guys, there's not a whole lot of options. And I don't, I keep hearing people say, "Oh, just make Poirier and Diaz the main event," and I just can't see it. I just I don't think the gate will be high enough. I don't think that they can sell tickets high enough to be able to reason an event at Madison Square Garden.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if that fight becomes the main event, that card weakens up pretty quick. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, where it stands right now, it's a great main card, but it's with the belief that there's going to be one top build fight on top of
Yeah.
it. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, like as somebody who's traveling out there and going to the fight, I'm hoping that it's something big. But honestly, at this point, I just want anything, anything that really. I mean, any title fight, I'll be
Just
happy.
announce the ticket sales and yeah, yeah.
Any title fight at this point, if the main card sticks, I'll be happy with. You know, I just I don't know. The John Jones thing is weird to me because does anybody know when his next meeting is? Isn't usually that public? Don't they usually have a public hearing or something where they give you your suspension? I mean,
I
has
mean,
he?
I mean the commission ones are public, but the USADA stuff, I don't know if they streamed that anywhere. I've never seen them streamed or tell. Usually there's announcements and links that people share on Twitter and stuff, but it's usually the commission ones that I've watched. I've never seen an USADA one, but
I
I don't
know,
know. Somebody'd have
but
to chime in on the comments or something.
but has he ever been actually suspended? I know I should know this, but I mean,
Yeah, he
is he
well,
even is he
he,
under suspension right now? Technically,
well, he's fighting it, so it's like up to a 4 year suspension if it sticks. So I think that's why everything's up in the air with him possibly coming back. I feel like it's going to happen just because, like I said, he's never this vocal on social media unless he's already fighting or got something. And he's got a lot of training footage out there. I know he did some charity work, so who knows if that's part of some other nonsense he got himself into. So
it
I
just
don't
seems
know.
like if he comes back and fights Gustafson, I guess they could do it this late notice to come back and fight Cormier for the heavyweight title. Seems like they're putting themselves against the wall for promotion and stuff. Seems like that becomes a huge fight. Never mind the past history of the first two with him, but with the drugs and the steroids and stuff. I mean, God, that seems like a fight you'd want to promote like crazy, especially in New York. Um,
Yeah,
Especially now with Cormier being kind of the Cormier's kind of the guy now. He had the belt last time he fought Jones, but everybody considered Jones the real champion. Even if Jones considers himself the real lightweight champion, um, Cormier is the real heavyweight champion. And on most people's maps, the heavyweight champion is the baddest man on the planet.
yeah,
So to me, you kind of you know, there's a lot that could be promoted there, and if the UFC did it right, I would, you'd see billboards left and right with him and Cormier and in Times Square and up and down New York. So I don't know. I mean, I would love to see that fight. Um, I think Jones deserves a longer suspension, but like I said, at this point, I don't even care. I just want to fight. Um,
yeah. I
I
think we all do,
honestly,
especially around here.
honestly, with the card that was laid out initially, I would have been fine with TJ and Cejudo.
I thought you
Not
were
a
gonna say CM Punk.
No, no, it's Cejudo. I know it's everybody says that
Yeah,
Cejudo needs to fight Mighty Mouse immediately. Well, if Mighty Mouse is hurt, we shouldn't be making a guy sit around not fighting. Mighty Mouse will get the title shot whenever he comes back. Um, I just think that that's not a fight that's necessarily Madison Square worthy. But if you have a dual title fight, it's just one of those things you can kind of promote again, and it's a historic event. Whether it's the McGregor is not to the level of McGregor Alvarez or necessarily Stipe Cormier, but it would still be something that would be on a plaque at Madison Square Garden, and you would say so and so became a two division champion, or
yeah.
so and
What
so.
looks good outside on Seventh Avenue and in Times Square? That's the two faces you want to see on billboards of that level. Like it's got to be something that makes people stop and look and say, "Hey, man, this is coming up." It can't be somebody that's it can't. I feel like it at least has to be a title fight.
To me, it has to be, and like I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you can ride Diaz as a main event in a non-title fight um, with the New York Commission. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't want to do it. I would feel scared buying tickets to an event where Diaz is the main event with the New York Commission, knowing that he'll be there smoking, pot 3 days before the fight in public. And,
Yeah.
it's going to be one of those things where the Vegas or California, kind of knows what's up a little bit more. New York always has issues and is able to, seems to find a way to always screw something up. So,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I don't know, but so it's risky. But I mean, it's got to come up soon. They got
Yeah.
to basically give a week an announcement for tickets before they go on sale. and very
Yeah, because
rarely.
I've been looking, man. I've been trying to see what's going on, and it really is crickets. I'm surprised at the lack of chatter about. At least drop us a hint or something.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to email one of the people I get my tickets from. She tends to have the earlier information and stuff, but I know the response is just going to be they're waiting for a main event before they
Yeah.
announce anything. So I don't know. I guess you could make Diaz Poirier a main event if somehow you're able to load. Maybe throw Gustafson on the card in a big fight. Maybe throw. Oh, I don't even know who's out there. Maybe you bring Askren in. I don't know. Could you throw Askren in there against, somebody?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden just promote it
Yeah.
as a seven fight deep card. Maybe even make it a 6 fight pay-per-view. I know they've done that in the past for some.
But not. I mean, it sucks to say it because I actually like Ben Askren, and there's rumors about GSP cutting weight to get at 155. I mean, if they had Askren GSP as a main event for me and you, that'd be a that's like cool as hell. But the casual fans they're trying to cater to now, people are gonna be like, who's this guy with the funny hairdo? Like not like
I think you could promote that though. I think you could do that because it's GSP.
yeah,
He's basically 500,000 pay-per-view buys, and then you start playing the clips of all the smack talk of Askren and Dana White, and you show these undefeated Bellator champion, one champion. Um, you could that would work, and that kind of
yeah,
slipped my mind as far as GSP goes. But again, you start getting late on promotion here. It's the what do we got? We got the McGregor fight. You know, that's on October 6th. Obviously this will all be figured out by then. Um,
I hope.
because you're going to have to because you're going to want to be
Yeah,
promoting the heck out of this event is during the McGregor fight.
yeah,
Because that's where you're going to have the big audience. So I don't know, but I look forward to it and seeing what friggin' gets announced. It's got to happen soon.
yeah. So what else we got this weekend? I mean, I haven't really. I mean, I don't have access, so I know there's an LFA card. And I usually catch them after the fact online
Yeah,
or
this
at my
this
buddy's
Friday,
house.
this Friday on Access TV at 9 o'clock Eastern is LFA. LFA it's Stotts versus Lilly is the main event. Saturday is pretty loaded day for international fight fans. If you have the One app for one championship, it's a free app online. It's early morning for us on the West Coast, especially 4 a.m., 7 a.m. Main card start on the East Coast, but the event's free on the One app, and it's also on the One YouTube channel. Um, and their events are usually damn entertaining. They're actually
Yeah,
getting better. When I first started watching them, they had a lot of bigger names: Arlovsky, Tim Sylvia, Bobby Lashley. Some of those other guys, and then they kind of faded away a little bit. But now they've in the last, I'd say, year and a half, 2 years, they've really stepped their game up. They
oh
had some kick.
yeah,
They added some kickboxing. The voice Michael Chavello does the play-by-play for them, so it has that kind of old school K1 Heroes uh, K1 kickboxing flavor to it. Hearing him and anybody who watched Access TV for about the last previous decade knows who he is. So
yeah,
there's that at 11 a.m. Eastern time. ACB returns after several canceled shows with ACB 93. They actually are going to the pay per view model. All their events used to be free prior, and I know there was a lot of chatter and worry that they were going to end up disappearing because nobody would buy their pay per views. It was announced about a week and a half ago that in the United States this would be about a $3 pay per view. So it's about 20 fights. Usually they're action packed.
yeah,
That's at abcworld.tv. Um, you can't really argue with a $3 pay per view if you're sitting around on a Saturday afternoon, want something to run you up to the UFC card. $3 is usually going to give you a lot of action. I know Peter Strauss is on the card. Uh, we know him because he actually defeated Fernando Gonzalez, who was a guest on here prior to that fight in a
yeah,
very close bout. Um, and like I said, a loaded fight with about 20 fights. UFC, as we talked about, starts on Saturday. Fight Pass prelims start at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, followed by the FX, so it's not on Fox Sports 1. It's an FX prelims. Those start at 8 Eastern, and then as usual, the main card starts at 7 o'clock or Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern time. And for the night owls who won't have enough after one ACB and UFC, we got Pancrase that kicks off at 3 a.m. Eastern, 12 Pacific, with another about 20 fight card on
Mm.
that's on UFC Fight Pass. So there's a lot of action on Saturday. If anybody wants to pull a 18-hour day of MMA, it's there for the taking.
Yeah, I'm probably just gonna watch the UFC. Oh yeah, I'll do. I mean, I'll be doing jujitsu in the daytime, then I'll probably go work out with my dad, and then go watch the fights, the UFC fight. So, but yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. And then hopefully between now and the weekend, the card sticks together, and also I hope we hear something about UFC 230 soon, because I know folks like us are getting nervous.
Yeah, hopefully we hear it. So next week we hope to be back with another show. We will be back with another show. Nothing quite planned yet, but we'll definitely be reviewing this weekend's action. And as usual, fans can follow us at Combat Hour on Twitter. They can email us Coast-2-Coast Combat at gmail.com. You can follow me at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram, and give Ed a follow at Carbazol on Twitter and at Carbeerzol on Instagram.
Keep forgetting about that one. Thanks.
All right, Ed. Have a good rest of the week, and I look forward to talking to you come fight day.
Yeah, we'll try and set something up for next week. I got to reach out to some people, but yeah, I'm sure we'll talk between now and then.
All right, sounds good, man. Have a good one.
See you. Wait a second. Wait a second.